Well, listen to this story now. On the 1st of August at midnight, the Limpopo government is telling us that they would have banned the sale of alcohol after midnight. This is part of a legislation which they call the Limpopo Liquor Act. It's coming from the Department of Economic Development. We're joined now by the MEC, Rodgers, Monama, as well as the convener for the National Liquor Traders, Lucky Ntimane, to discuss this a little bit further. MEC, good evening, and thank you very much for your time. And Mr. Ntimane, thank you very much for coming on as well. MEC, let's begin with yourself. What is this thing called the Limpopo Liquor Act? Did you just sit down and decide you are going to come up with your own laws as the Limpopo province that are different to what's happening everywhere else in South Africa? I thought there's a National Liquor Act, but you're talking about the Limpopo Liquor Act. Talk to us about that process.
Okay, thanks very much, and good evening, Tawa, and your viewers, and good evening, Lucky. I think as the province, we have just not woke up and decided to design our own Limpopo Liquor Act. We are one of the two provinces that I think we are still operating in terms or in line with National Liquor Act of 1989, which I think is a problem to some of the things that we are experiencing on a daily basis, the number of the crime rates that we are experiencing as the province and all the other social ills that are there. So we are trying to synchronize the processes. But also there is a much improvement in terms of the new legislation and the prescript, in the sense that in the previous dispensation or the current dispensation, if a person's license is declined, it did not have a recourse for appeal why the license has been declined. But over and about, we had a situation where we've also extended the periods from Monday to Sunday, which I think all of you reckon the fact that all the bottle store, what do you call the off consumptions, your bottle store, your shops and other farm wines were restricted to sell their liquor on Sundays and other fermented beverages. But now we are more flexible, and we have also improved because people have to come to the provincial government in terms of the accessibility. Now we are devolving this function to the district liquor boards, which I think are more accessible. People know also that the situation was more abused when they were going to the police stations and they were given those licenses, and they were deprived or prejudiced in terms of their rights in the sale of the liquor and so forth.
Right. So while you have introduced all these niceties of accessibility and whatnot, you've managed to sneak in a caveat there, and you say, yep, close all sales at midnight. Now, when you exercise power as politicians, you must always be asked, what's the rationale? What is your thinking? You're not abusing your power. What are you thinking around that particular one? What informs that decision?
Yeah, the abuse of power is a strong word. Legislation is what you call is residual because it's a consultative process. We try to embark on a consultation process in all the districts to say what is the situation, what are the submissions and that. And out of that, I think we were able to make a proper determination. For instance, if I can give you the classical example, if you are a Limpopo and you are in Mpumalanga, for instance, you'll find that in Mpumalanga they are closing at midnight, and in our case, we are closing at 3 o'clock in the morning. So after Mpumalanga conditions lapse, then you cross the road and you come to Limpopo and then begin with what you have been doing in that part of the country. And those are some of the dynamics and the inconsistencies in the application of the Act. And we were trying to align them so that there is a uniformity in terms of the application of the law.
Yeah, let's talk to the liquor traders then. Let's hear what they have to say. Lucky, the National Liquor Act of 1989 seemingly problematic and being blamed for, by and large, the problems and social ills in society, and needed to be amended and needed to be visited. Some of the things that have been introduced are to facilitate accessibility. People no longer, your members in particular, having to be abused by police officers. They're trying to get licenses and so on and so forth. They can directly go to province now. But also, this is a decision of aligning Mpumalanga, Limpopo to have the same kind of expectation when you're in one province and you're in another. What's your reaction about the introductions that are coming in here?
Thank you so much for the opportunity, and good evening to the Honorable MEC and also to the viewers of Newzroom Afrika. We welcome the spirit and the letter of the new act as introduced by the MEC. We feel that it is a step in the right direction. However, our view on two particular points is that, the issue of license fees renewal that have now almost increasing up to 750%, moving from 100 Rand per annum up to 750 Rand per annum for taverns. But also, if you are going to reduce the trading hours for taverns, whereas on the other hand, you are then increasing the renewal fees, then that 2 hours that you are now losing on a daily basis, how are we going then to be able to afford those increases that you're now putting on the table? But also to say that Mpumalanga has an effect on how liquor traders in Limpopo are doing things. I think it's really worrying that a law of a province will be influenced by its neighbor, whereas the economic activity of that province is not really dependent on the neighbor. So I think that is something that we're looking at, and we are seeking legal counsel with a view to interdicting this act before it goes on the 1st of August. And we have written a letter through Skukune Liquor Traders Association, through its General Secretary, Silo Lehodi, on the 15th of March. We addressed it to the Premier, and also we copied the Chairperson of the Liquor Board, and the Premier responded through his Chief of Staff on the 23rd of March to say that that letter was going to be forwarded to the MEC, Monama. And the issues that we highlighted were two: the issue of trading hours, and secondly, the issue of license renewal fees. And we have not received a response thus far. So we are surprised that as part of the 6-7 minutes for Mandela reward that we're getting is that this thing is going to be passed. So we are calling on the MEC, Honorable MEC, that we need to really look at this. Let us talk. We share, I think, the same spirit of this Liquor Act, yeah, which we fully support, but also need to understand, the economic implication of the liquor traders if this act is passed in its current form.
I thought the MEC was the politician here, but it does seem like you're also the politician here, saying we welcome this in the spirit of it, but we are going to go and interdict it because we don't want it to go ahead. So is it only those two areas for you that are a concern, the fees and the trading hours? And did you make submissions, or at least your members in Limpopo, in this particular process of coming up with this act?
Yeah, so we did try to engage through the Skukune Liquor Traders, but we never given that platform to engage. But I must say, and I need to put this on record, we fully support the Limpopo province, especially the MEC, with this new Liquor Act. We feel that it is the step in the right direction, and it actually does more for liquor traders, than the previous act, yeah, that was almost predominantly the one that was running the province in terms of its liquor engagements. But this one, we feel that, the province is moving ahead. There is some high level of innovation in how this act is structured. And honestly, it will protect liquor traders, not just taverns, but also the retailers. But we're just worried that, given that the 2 hours is taken away from us, and also that the license fee renewal is going above, a norm, is something that we cannot at this stage be able to comprehend. So we are calling for that review. And in the absence of a review happening in the next 3 weeks or so, we are definitely going to interdict. We have instructed our lawyers that they need to start preparing the papers.
Interesting that you don't raise this one particular issue, because during the time of COVID, you were particularly vocal on this issue of liquor consumption being blamed on social ills in society. What do you say to that particular point, that this, in a sense, will also address that particular matter?
Look, I don't think, even though it is favorable to say that, alcohol only brings good things, but we have seen, especially during COVID-19, when we experienced the lockdowns, that alcohol abuse in the country is a topic that we've managed to sweep under the carpet for so long. And yes, to some extent, alcohol can be linked to some of the heinous crimes that we see in the country. And we need to be able to tackle that. But it is not only the responsibility of the alcohol industry, but it's a society-wide approach that is required to be able to deal with this issue. It's all hands on deck. It requires civil society. It requires liquor traders. It requires government. And we're ready, to reach out to all the relevant parties to be able to address this issue. But we know, for example, if we look at the statistics being released quarterly by SAPS at a national level, that almost 15% of the rapes can be linked directly to alcohol. So we cannot sit and hide, around this very fact that seeks to undermine our fight against gender-based violence in this country. So yes, Thabo, it is true that to a certain extent, alcohol abuse does, address or does link into some of these crimes that you're talking about. But also we need to look at the good apples that we have in the bunch that continue to sell alcohol in a responsible way, those that are role models in our communities. We need to be able to support those. But these ones that are not complying with our liquor laws in the country, actually we are on record as to say they should lose their license. There should not be any mercy on them.
The Limpopo government has banned the sale of alcohol, at least after midnight, according to the latest legislation, which will come into effect on the 1st of August. We are still with the Economic Development MEC, Rodgers, Monama, and the National Liquor Traders convenor, Lucky Ntimane. MEC, are you blue-ticking the Liquor Traders Association? Did you get the letter from the Sekhukhune Liquor Traders asking you to review those two areas?
No, we can't blue-tick them. They know that one of our responsibilities or our constitutional mandate as the leader economic development is to ensure that we strengthen the entrepreneurship ecosystem in the province, and among others to ensure that there is that enterprise development. Your SMMEs should be taken on board. And I think it's true that they've sent a letter, but as the processes unfold, Lucky knows that for any act to be operationalized, you have to give a notice in the media, more especially the print media, whereby you call for the objection. And that's one area I think that we did not fine-tune, that they did not exploit that responsibility that they have. But nevertheless, I think the issues that is raising, they are quite genuine and pertinent, and we still have a room for us with them to come and interact and transact and impress upon these issues and see how best we can find a sustainable solution, because we also wanted to ensure that we support more especially the emerging business people and our SMMEs. And then if they can come, I think we still have that window to say we are not arrogant, we are not rigid, but we are just saying we need to have some parameters in which business has to be regulated in the province, because it can't be an open-ended processes that there is no regulation. Suddenly you have the proliferation and mushrooming of the liquor outlets in the province, some illegal, whereby some illicit trafficking of substances are being traded, and all the social ills like your gender-based violence. There is that empirical evidence, of course, that demonstrate that it is a contributory factor. But also when you go to the mining houses, you find that majority of the people who knocked off at the roadblock Lucky, when they go there, they have to be tested and they can't pass the test. We are also contributing to the social cohesion, and they get dismissed. Then we go back in the issue of addressing the triple challenges that we have. Whereas we said we must put all our hands on the deck to ensure that we push back the quagmire of underdevelopment, unemployment, and inequality, and so forth. But I'm saying that let's streamline the processes. We still have a window of opportunity to come and sit and see how best we can find an amicable solution. And as the MEC responsible for economic development, I'll be unfair to say that if they advance a genuine argument like that to say, we understand, we fully support this, and you can tweak and twist here so that you accommodate us as a business so that we are able to trade freely, but without also diverging the law enforcement agency, because most of their time they spend on dealing with the issue, the crime-related offences in our liquor outlets. Yeah. And that issue that it has been raised in our public hearings, whereby you find the people that's in Mukhuhlulaki or in your Denelton line, they just cross the road and go to Mpumalanga and come to Limpopo to continue. And to us it's unfair discrimination, because in the same country with different pieces of legislation, sometimes I think we need to engage to ensure how best we can.
Explain the MEC why the huge jump from to 750, I think, is what Lucky says per annum.
Yeah, that's one issue that I think they are raising. But one of the things that I think we have looked into was that this was more of a 1989 act. And since then, that has been a standard fee that we're charging in terms of the application for license. And the 100 Rand and the 700 Rand of 1989, we also have the responsibility to generate more revenue in the regularization of the businesses that we have in the country. But I'm still maintaining that if they still have an issue and they have a genuine argument around the issue and show us what are the economic implications of that fee that I think we are trying to impose, then we are amenable to come and discuss about that matter. Yeah. I think we are, like I said, that we are not only choreographing the issue. Yeah. These are the issues which are obtainable in the public domain, and people have been making inputs, and majority of the people are excited about this new concrete interventions that we are imposing in terms of the regularization of the industry. And we are not saying that they are minority. That's not should be the attitude. But we are saying that let's come and engage. We are ready for them, and they can come. Yeah. And when that argument is genuine, and we can meet halfway. That's the commitment that I think we wanted to make.
The reduction of trading hours, I'm sure you know the numbers. You'll probably be able to give the MEC. I know you were sharing some with us during the time of COVID. Of course, it was a little bit more severe because it was a complete shutdown in some instances. Some instances, you were only allowed to trade up until 9 in the morning or something ridiculous like that. I can't remember. But what would be the impact of those reduced numbers, or will it be negligible?
Let me first acknowledge the progressive stance taken by the MEC, which we fully respect. Thank you so much, MEC. So the reduction of hours will definitely impact on our businesses, because if you take 2 hours, especially at a peak trading period between 1 and 2, which is, we close at 2 as per the license conditions as it stands now, you are going to lose that business. And almost 70% of business in the township space runs between Friday and Sunday. So removing 6 hours out of that space, we could demonstrate that, significant amount of money will be lost. And that will affect, the ability of a taverner to be able to remain operational in a sustainable basis. So we feel that those hours should be looked at. There should be maybe some, the creative ways in which we can look around this. Do we then cut off those 2 hours between Monday and Thursday, for example, and then leave them over the weekends? I think the MEC has, in a right way, opened up, room for opportunity to be able to fully engage so that we can find lasting solutions that support not just liquor traders, but also the communities. As we know that we cannot separate a community and a tavern. A tavern exists in an ecosystem of a community. We exist and trade, at the pleasure of the communities that we operate in. And we don't want to disrespect our communities in any way possible. We are not asking to trade till 2 o'clock so that we can make noise, so that, we can bring nonsense into our communities. No, that's not what we're saying. We're just saying, allow us enough opportunity to be able to put money on the table to support our families. And that 2 hours should be removed. We feel that it's going to negatively affect or impact our businesses.
Gentlemen, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much for coming on. That's what we leave it for tonight. That is Lucky Ntimane, convener for the National Liquor Traders Association, and Rodgers Monama, Economic Development, Environment and Tourism MEC in the province of Limpopo.